Hello, Tycoon Online. This is Jay Chen, and something smells fishy in here. Let's talk about fish. Um, so fresh fish is an interesting good, partly because of the factory that produces it, the fishing fleet. Two interesting things to note about the fishing fleet is that it's only one zone. And the other thing is that because it can only be built in the water, it cannot receive the road bonus, which is a 30% bonus. So it's got a pro and a con. Two things to consider. All right, so something I found very interesting about the fishing fleets is that the fact that it's only one zone means that you can build 25 fishing fleets very early. I did the calculations. I don't know if you saw my spreadsheet. It only cost about, I think it was like 177,000 to build all 25 fishing fleets. And that means that you can get up some fishing fleets really, really quickly. To compare that, for example, I built 25 cotton fields this round, and that cost me roughly about 1.1, a little less than 1.1 million. So that's a big difference. And to put in perspective, if you want to build 25 fishing fleets, you can easily build 25 fishing fleets um, after only having about like 6 or 7 buildings. And after like basically after the first week, you can build 25 fishing fleets immediately. Um, and so what does that mean? Like that to me means something unique is that speed. It means that you can get your fishing fleets out um, faster than somebody else who's making cotton or wheat or pigs. Um, and that is significant in a way. Um, you one obviously you're ahead in the CV race because you're producing more goods. Um, but something else I think a lot of people would sort of neglect is that by having a lot of fishing fleets, you're obviously going to hire fishermen to work in those, and that having an extra 2 or 3 weeks of having fishermen in your fishing fleets means that your fishermen will be much better. So your staff production points will be much higher than everyone else's because you've had them in the same building or the same type of building for a really long time. So there are how many weeks? There are 10 weeks in the round, and if by after week one you build 25 fishing fleets, and for 9 more weeks you have just fishermen in those fishing fleets, those staff will be really strong. They will have they will have really high production points, versus if you have um, a mixed strategy where you had to change. So, for example, what I had to do this round, I had many shops, I had many offices, and I had a couple factories, and I built and rebuilt, and I retrained my staff, and I hired new ones. And in the beginning, it wasn't really worth it to retrain them. It was just better to fire them and hire new ones. So my staff, they grew a considerable amount. I thought my staff did really well in terms of how well they grew, in terms of their production points, but they could be better, right? If they just stuck in one factory or one shop, one office, their production points would be really high. I've also had to retrain my staff multiple times, like the same staff multiple times, um, because they had really high production points. So I wanted to keep them and wasn't going to fire them, but I have different buildings now. So that does. I feel like that would. It's a feeling. It's an opinion. I'm not really sure. I got no math to prove it, but I just feel like it would. Um, that creates an interesting dynamic for fishing fleets. Um, of course, there is that other drawback, right? You don't get the 30% road bonus, um, and to sort of like the other side of that drop, the other side because it's only has one zone. To mention, I spent I think $170,000 opening up a new zone to build 25 cotton fields. So I spent as much money, to build if as much money as somebody were to build fishing fleets as it was just to open up a zone so I can build my cotton fields. Of course, I could have built my cotton fields not by the road, but then I would just be losing that road bonus that I could be getting because it can be built next to the road. So it's sort of like this weird thing where like Well, it doesn't get a road bonus, so you don't need to worry about it, right? So you don't really need to save up that much more money to switch to it. Oh, I forgot to mention. So this is assuming that you guys, in this discussion that I'm sort of having this discussion of me talking to a camera, where I'm sort of this discussion is between like having this knowledge that 25. Well, blah blah. Okay, forget about that. I'm not gonna cut this out. What was I gonna say? So that's something that I find very interesting about fishing fleets. Another thing that I find very interesting about fishing fleets that doesn't happen to the full extent um, is that fishing, if you're not in the fish specialty, in my opinion, you shouldn't be making fresh fish. Like, you shouldn't have a single fishing fleet. You should not. You should just buy it off the market. Um, and or you should just not build it at all. Doesn't make, and to me, if you're not in the fish, if you're not making 25 fishing fleets, you shouldn't be making any. It's either 25 or none. Yeah, 25 or none. And the reason I for that is because um, the people who are making fishing fleets, they should be selling all their fish. You should. There's no reason to be making frozen fish from your fresh fish. Um, Absolutely no reason whatsoever. It's really like it's just not that great of an idea. Just partly, if you review my video on market bonus, it's even more prevalent with this because with fishing fleets, you're gonna need to think about 3 fishing fleets making that fish for one harbor because of the lack of 30% road bonus, which is ish. Um, 3 fishing fleets will make a little more than you need, but will it? Yeah, I think so. Um, so because of that, it's to concentrate on one um, building would be much better. Like I said, for the staff reason, for the fish bonus, and for the market bonus. Um, Now, of course, since we're talking about fish, you could be making frozen fish um, instead of making fresh fish, right? And in that case, you would have to buy your frozen fish. Sorry, buy your fresh fish and make frozen fish and sell the frozen fish. Keyword: sell the frozen fish, because that again is something else that, well, you really. I personally feel that it's either 25 fishing fleets or 25 harbors, or not, maybe not 25 harbors, but because that would be very dangerous. It would be very risky, but it's possible. Um, to do that, I see that the reason why you would want to do that is, well, what I'm saying is that when you build harbors, you don't want to be making your own grocery stores. You want to be selling your frozen fish, definitely, because you're losing out on a lot of CV potential by selling them in your in the grocery stores. Um, Whereas you could just be maxing production. Um, you know, Making frozen fish, if you can get 25 of them, would be really good because the Tycoon online economy is relatively small. So if one player can actually make 25 harbors, that would provide a lot of frozen fish to the market, and that is something because those people who have bakeries, not bakeries, grocery stores, they really shouldn't have to buy their frozen fish. I mean, they shouldn't have to make their frozen fish. They really should just be able to buy it, and it should be really, readily accessible on the market. Unfortunately, it's not, um, because in a grocery store, it sells bread and it sells frozen fish. And frozen fish are easier to make than bread because bread requires 4 wheat and then 2 flour and then 1 bread. Whereas fish is just two fresh fish, 1 frozen fish, and that's it. So frozen fish is a lot easier to make than bread. And it should be, just there should just be lots of fish on the market all the time. But there isn't, which is quite interesting. So I'm thinking about going fish next round, doing that, and trying either doing all oops, there goes my light, all fresh fish, or slowly build my way into harbors. Um, but anyway, so I want to hear your opinions about fish, particularly the fresh fish. and the drawback, the pro and con that I presented. If you can think of anything else, let me know. I think I covered everything. Um, and also let me know how you feel about selling the fish on the market and not consuming the frozen the fish. For example, when I mean not consuming, I mean either making 25 fishing fleets and selling them on the market, or buying a fish and making frozen fish and selling those on the market as well, and not chaining at all. It's not something I feel like should be chained. I do. I personally don't think that anything should be chained, but there are some things that people can argue, and I've seen the greatness of it. That there are some partial chains that are actually very powerful, um, and but the reason why the partial chains exist is just because of market conditions, that they just can't buy enough goods to just have one factory, so they have to have a little bit of supply chain going on. Um, but anyways, so that's how I feel about fresh fish and frozen fish. I want to hear your opinions about it, um, and in particular, if anybody has the math, I know not many people like the math. I love math. Um, let me know about the math for, or if you have a better idea of how to do this. I would really like to know what would be a good way to calculate this. Well, how good would my staff be if I started making fishing fleets from the second week? So I guess it's after like 7 days ish. Well, after the second week, how good would my staff be? Those fishermen in there, and how much better would they be compared to my cotton harvesters right now? Um, so that is it. Let me know. And oh, also one last thing. I think I've been making a lot of videos, and I intend on making more videos. And I think I've been spamming the forums a lot with my videos. So I think I'm going to stop spamming them. I'll only be posting my videos on, or my next videos, only my lessons, the ones that I like talk about the game, and the ones I have like proof. Not these discussion videos where I just kind of blabber on and talk about my ideas, my opinions. That they're just opinions. This is how I feel about it. I don't have too much proof to back them up. I've got a little bit, but I feel like so that's why I kind of want to talk about it and get your opinions on it. So those kind of videos, I think I'm not going to be posting too much on the forums. So if you want to see them, I think this is a subscribe thing. You can check my YouTube channel. I'll be posting those quite often. Maybe I'll put them on my blog on Tycoon Online, if you guys read that. I don't really know. So, okay then. Let's talk about fish.